It's our pal Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great, Jay. How are you, man?
I'm doing well, man. This is one of my favorite parts of the year here in March when playoff hockey's right around. Well, it's April now. Jeez, I mean, the March Madness. March. It's still March Madness to me. Damn it. Still real to me. Damn it.
What a great clip.
Yeah, it's such a great clip, right?
Iconic.
It is. I love my under the radar wrestling references because I feel like if my sports brethren that are understanding of the wrestling references, I feel like just gives us another notch over other people.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, like, if you say it to somebody, they either know it or they have no clue what you're talking about. And you either, like, you get it and you're like, yes, you're my kind of guy, or they're just like, never mind, move on.
It's funny because I met Pat McAfee years ago. And one of the things I asked him is like, what do you do when it comes to wrestling? Like, how do you, because some people, we're in Tampa. And he said that. He goes, Jay, you're in Tampa. He's like, you're in one of the hubs, like wrestling hub. He goes,
Yep.
There's no gray area when it comes to wrestling. You either get it, you probably love it, or you don't get it at all. And that's my mom and dad to a nutshell. Like my mom, she's in the soap opera, so she gets it. She doesn't like watch it, but she gets it. My dad doesn't get it at all. I don't know where I got my love of wrestling, but that's what it is.
And that's the thing, like itself as a sport. Like I love that clip because like just that golden age of YouTube, right? Where it's just like those things that stick forever. Like I never got wrestling like the people who really get it, like love it. But like what I do understand is when you love something, you just love it and it's okay to just have fun. So like, I think the people that take it too seriously, like, whatever criticisms you have of it, like guys, there's plenty of things in this world to take seriously. Professional wrestling is not one of them. Let people enjoy what they enjoy and have fun. And so whatever. I don't need to like get deep into it to understand why people enjoy it. And it's just fun. Let people have fun, man.
Yeah, exactly. I have that conversation with people. I'm like, you don't like wrestling? You think it's stupid? Okay. Like, you like Game of Thrones? I love Game of Thrones. I'm like, the dragons aren't real. The dragons aren't real. And they're like, that's a good point. And I go, yeah, there you go. Monday Night Raw coming up. All right, let's talk some football, man. I mean, big takeaways. I mean, looking at the NFL meetings with Jason Light and Todd Bowles, hearing what those guys had to say about, I want to ask you about 19, that position. From what we've heard from Jason, what we've heard from Todd, where do you think they're leaning, man? If they had their druthers, Luke, if they had an opportunity, and I'm just going to put guys out there, if you have a corner out there, whether it's Barron or Johnson, whether you have an inside linebacker like Jahad Campbell, let's say you have your pick of Ezeraku or maybe one of the other pass rushers, where do you think the Bucs go at 19?
So, positionally, I always prioritize this, from the trenches out. So for me, even though, I mean, really the outside linebacker group is fairly set on paper right now. I think the bottom, the young depth is coming along again. Anthony Nelson's back on a 2-year deal. You're hoping Chris Braswell takes that next step. You brought in Hassan Reddick as that kind of splash signing to be like, okay, we need somebody who knows how to get to the quarterback who we don't have to develop. We need somebody who's going to be able to make an impact week 1 and on. And so, and Yaya's obviously, expected to start on the other side. But I don't think any of that keeps them from taking the right edge at 19 if he's there. And mostly because Hassan Reddick's on a 1-year deal. And so while he helps now, you can never, ever have too many pass rushers. The Bucs knew that in 2020. The Eagles proved it again last year. If you can have waves of those guys, interior or on the edge, you're going to be able to be dominant on defense. And so while you can have the kind of chicken or the egg conversation about the defense, is it coverage? Is it pass rush? I will always err on the pass rush side first. And so you talk about a guy like Ezeraku. I'm really hoping he's there at 19. The closer we get to the draft, I just saw my friend Jordan Reed from ESPN put something out this morning that he's looking like a maybe top 15 guy right now based on what he's hearing around the league. And I'm so pissed, right? Because I'm like, man, that's my guy. Highly productive, great athlete, showed it at the combine. The film is so great. The technique is polished. Like he's got a plan. Like he knows what he's doing. Isn't going to come in and be super raw and need to like figure out how to use his pass rush moves. He knows what he's doing. And so that's why I got really excited about him at 19. Don't know if he's going to be there now. But I've got like 7 edge guys that I feel like are first round locks, which is just insane, right? I mean, that's just, you've got, I mean, and I count Jalen Walker from Georgia as an edge, but you've got Abdul Carter, you got Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, the other Georgia guy. Ezeraku right now is the 4th ranked edge guy in this draft for me. but you've got Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. You've got Mike Green from Marshall. You got James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. I think all those guys have a really good shot to go in the first round. And so while the depth is there, I feel like if the Bucs don't get their guy at 19, I feel like there's going to be a run that they're going to miss, that next tier before they come up in the mid-second. So Ezeraku would be really my top priority. After that, though, Will Johnson is a top 10 prospect in this draft for me. So it's hard for me to imagine him being on the board at 19. But if he is, man, I'm all about that. Everybody go back to
How does that happen, Luke? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I feel like you get in a situation where you fall in love with Jackson Dart. You fall in love with, Hampton as the running back. Like you start getting these teams that fall in love with the skill players again. And then I go, all right, well, does Will Johnson fall? Does Shador fall? And then people just start losing their mind a little bit. And then it's like, oh, wow, you get to 17 and you're like, Johnson's there, Ezeraku's there, Jihad Campbell's there. I feel like the Bucs could be that team where they're not too far down. They're not in the mid-20s where if people start, drafting these guys based on what they did at the combine with the cutoff, right? Like, I feel like that could bode well. Do you agree with that? Like, if we start seeing some craziness, the Bucs are one of those teams that could really benefit from that.
It is, and I do this when I do these mock drafts that I do every week at Athlon, where they're 4 rounds long, and so I get to the end of every round, and I'm like, how the hell did I not have this guy in the first or this guy in the second? Because I always say this is the time of year where everybody's like, these 50 guys aren't getting out of the first round, and I'm like, guys, there's only 32 picks. That's just somebody can't go. Like that's just the way it is, and so the same thing is true for the Bucs at 19, where it's just like, oh, this guy will never be there, and that guy will never be there. And eventually, when you have 20 guys who aren't going to be there at 19, somebody is. And so when you see particularly guys like Jackson Dart moving up the board and getting that buzz, anybody the Bucs don't need going ahead of them is a good thing, right? And so I think, honestly, it kind of happened with the Bucs last year at 25. They sat there and got, Graham Barton fell right into their laps, and I think they were thrilled about that because I think they were not planning on him being there. And so at 19, you talk about Will Johnson again. How does it happen from a player standpoint? He was banged up last year. We didn't get to see the best of him last year, but go back to the 2023 film. Go back and look at the film early last season. 6'2", 200 plus. He's got the length, great instincts, ball skills. If I had one thing that I wish he did better, I wish he was tougher against the run. I'm just a sucker for a corner who's willing to, growing up watching the Rondé Barbers of the world and watching those tough, hard-nosed corners. I wish he was a little bit tougher as a run stuffer, but in today's NFL, man, you've got to be able to cover as a boundary corner and do that first at a high level, and everything else kind of comes afterwards. I think he does that. He's a big play guy, great ball skills. And so, could he slip because he was banged up this year and people didn't get to see the best of him? I think they're going to overthink him to a certain extent, and he could be on the board there. I think I've got him going now in the 15 range. I could see him going as high as 6. I think he'd be such a perfect fit for Pete Carroll in that defense. I don't know if he goes that high, but I would consider him there. Jihad Campbell is an interesting one to me because he's clearly the top off-ball linebacker, that inside linebacker role in this draft. I think he's a perfect fit for Todd Bowles' defense with his ability to cover, play the run. He's a great blitzer, whether he's coming off the edge. He can line up on the edge and just rush the passer as an edge guy, but he's such a good blitzer. Big thing with him, man. Great athlete. But I don't know when he's going to be ready. He just had shoulder surgery after the combine to repair a torn labrum. He wasn't able to work out at the Alabama Pro Day. Obviously, he was in a sling. And so if you're looking at, a months-long recovery, you're talking about missing OTAs. You're talking about missing all those installs, missing some of training camp maybe. I don't even know if week 1, depending on the recovery, would be in the cards. And so that a long-term, obviously, he's a great play. But for a team that really needs to upgrade that position immediately, I don't know how much that would play into the conversation. Obviously, the Bucs team doctors would have a say in that probably, but that's the big concern with Campbell. As a player, I love him, love the fit for the Bucs, but the injury would be concerning at least right away.
Yeah, especially with Servassier Dennis, right? You need some kind of stability there of like, do we really want to go down the road of this guy, of another, off-ball linebacker that we have injury concerns about?
A shoulder surgery too. It's the same, like a similar injury. It's
it's like that Spider-Man meme, right? Like they're shooting the webs at each other. Yeah, I feel like the Bucs need a Will Johnson, Laramie Tunsil type of him smoking out of a bong or something like that from the fall of 19. He's that damn good. When you look at this offense and you look at the wide receiver position, I know some people are looking at all right, can you get another wide receiver? At what round would you look at a receiver for the Buccaneers? Because yeah, as much I think they're going to ease Chris Godwin in, and this is why I think it for him. I think it makes so much sense for the return to the Buccaneers, because if you go to New England, you go to Jacksonville, there's going to be pressure for you to be ready week 1. People are going to want you to be wide receiver 1 week 1 and be that guy that you were last year. I don't know if that's realistic. He can stay here. Nobody's going to lose. If Godwin after 4 weeks has like 15 catches and just like 180 yards and 1 touchdown, people are going to be like, oh man, we shouldn't have signed Chris. It's like, hey, he's coming back from an injury. We got Mike, we got J-Mac.
Right. Down here, nobody's going to panic. Like
nobody's going to panic. But with that being said, does that go into the thought process, right? Because Mike isn't getting any younger, right? We don't know what the deal is with Trey Palmer. We know that's a position that just you deal with a hamstring injury. The guy's out for 2.5 weeks. Like that just happens with guys that run. What do you think is the round that we could see the Bucs if they go receiver? Is it more towards the beginning half of the draft or the back half of the draft?
Yeah, I think easily the back half of the draft makes the most sense. I think the 4th round might be the sweet spot in terms of value on the board, and also like if they come out of the first 3 rounds with an edge and a linebacker and a corner or a safety, like if they hit those big defensive needs early, I think they'll feel more comfortable taking a receiver in that 4th round range. The big caveat I would say to that is if the right guy falls at 19. That's the conversation you have to have, because I can see the board. Again, I've done so many of these mocks and so many of these scenarios where like you get kind of an idea of the flow of certain scenarios where it's like, man, there's so many times where the Bucs are there at 19 and there's not a corner I'm super thrilled with. There's not an edge I'm super thrilled with. There's not, the 2 safeties are off the board, the top 2 safeties. There's nobody, Jahad Campbell's gone. There's nobody that really fills one of those immediate needs that I think is worthy of a top 20 pick. And so obviously, in those scenarios, your first thing is, can I move down? But you have to have somebody to trade down with. And if there's nobody you're thrilled about, chances are they're probably not going to be anybody else is thrilled about, unless the position needs are super different. And so if we're having a conversation about, listen, there's just no top 20 talent on the board. And I mean, does Tet McMillan get to 19? That's a no-brainer to me. Like, that's easy. That's easy. That's a layup to me. And everybody be like, oh, we need so many other things. Again, like you said, Mike is going to be a 1 to 2 year rental at this point in his career. And go back and look at the transition the Bucs got to have from Vincent Jackson to Mike Evans, and the similar body types, the similar skill sets, the ability to kind of transition into that big physical, dominant receiver that he was. And now you're going to plug in another 6'5", 215 plus pound guy where he can, the skill sets are a little bit different. He's not quite as big and physical as Mike was coming out. He's honestly a little bit better of a route runner right now than Mike was coming out of Texas A&M. Mike developed that over his career, but Tet's a little further ahead.
Is that fair, though? Is that fair with Johnny Manziel as your quarterback and your routes and the route trees at Texas A&M? It looked like a little
that's what I mean too. Is like I remember scouting him and being like, "Oh, his route tree isn't terribly defined." But like, this is one of those guys that teaches you not to care about that as you move forward.
He had the tree of
maybe
life.
I don't need to care about that quite as much.
He had the tree of life as his route tree.
Yeah, he just do whatever it takes. So, and the other guy I would mention is Emeka Egbuka, because I just think that if you made a list of the football players in this draft where you were like the most confident they're just not going to suck at all, Egbuka is very high on that list. I think he would have been a first-round pick last year, but he and a bunch of other Buckeyes were super pissed off at the way that season ended, and they came back and they won a national championship. And so he's got another year of experience. He is one of the most polished, sharp route runners. This is a guy you can plug into an NFL offense, and right away he's going to make a difference. He's fast. He gives me kind of Stephon Diggs, but like bigger vibes. And so I don't know. He's a guy that I think would be a dark horse just because the floor is so high, and I think he's got a good ceiling too. But McMillan is the kind of guy where, like, if we're talking, like, you look at even just the odds and the way the odds are moving, it's like maybe Matthew Golden from Texas is the first receiver off the board, which is a little wild to me. But if McMillan gets to 19, and especially if the board on defense doesn't look great, I've got no problems taking him as the Mike Evans protege. And then you're set there. You deal with your defensive needs in the other rounds. I just wouldn't shock me, and the value would be unreal.
Before I let you go, I know you're on a tight time crunch, and I appreciate you joining me, buddy. Since the last time we spoke, a couple months ago, what are your thoughts on the top 5 picks of the draft? Because I think it's so fascinating to see, as a guy that grew up in the Big Apple, I don't know what the hell the Giants are doing. I really have no clue. And do you go Travis Hunter and say, all right, we're going to go with the vets here and maybe play for Arch next year? And and what do the Titans do? What do the Browns do? Or they say, all right, we'll go with that. Does Cleveland go, all right, we'll go Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett, and then we'll go from there? Like, what do you think the first 5 picks are going to look like now that we have a little bit more clarity when it comes to free agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cam Ward to the Titans feels pretty chalk right now. The closer we get, that seems to be the only thing that I think we're certain about. 2 and 3 are intriguing to me because, listen, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, and Ashton Genty are the 3 truly elite players in this draft. I think they are in their own tier, and then everybody else, regardless of position, I think that's how my board would set up. And so, if you're having a conversation between Shedeur Sanders, who I think is the biggest wild card as a prospect to the league, I don't feel that way about him. I think he's worth the number 2 or 3 overall pick because the position is too important and because I think his floor is so high. I think mentally, physically, he's got enough tools. He's not quite on Cam Ward's level, but mentally, I feel like the ability to handle pressure both on and off the field, the ability to make solid decisions, the ability to handle no offensive line and just have to make stuff happen. I mean, he's not going to be shaken by really anything at the next level, and that appeals to me at that position. And so if you're the Browns and the Giants, you have this, do I take one of the truly elite players in this draft in Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter? I don't think Genty would be in the conversation there, or do I understand, and the Browns are a perfect example for this, because if any team knows how useless it is to have a Hall of Fame player at even another premium position, Joe Thomas for a decade, Myles Garrett for almost a decade now, it has not meant a damn thing to that franchise. They have not won anything with those 2 guys. And so while they're great to have, if you do not have a quarterback, it doesn't matter. Nothing else is going to matter. So I think Shedeur Sanders is like, he reminds me of Geno Smith over the last couple of years, the way how much good football he's played. I think he's been one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. And so while the physical tools don't jump off the table, I think he's easily an above average to good quarterback. And that is worthy of that pick to me. And I think it makes more of a difference to your team. So 2 and 3, he's got to be in that conversation. If they pass and they both go, Hunter and Carter in whatever order, I understand. But to your point about playing for Arch Manning has not proven anything to us that we haven't seen from like Jalen Milroe last year. Like really good runner, good arm strength. We have no idea what he can do as a full-time starter, reading defenses and genuinely being a franchise quarterback at that level. We have no clue yet. And so
where are you at on Milroe?
Huge fan, big boomer bust, but I'm on record as saying if I'm going to get fired for picking the wrong quarterback, give me the guy who has a chance to be something special, and I think that's Jalen Milroe. He's got a cannon for an arm, needs to figure out how to use it better, but 4.3 speed at 220 pounds, I feel like he's the guy that if I'm going to go down swinging, I'm going to go down with that guy. If you tell me I had to take Jackson Dart in the top 10 or I could get Jalen Milroe anytime on day 2, even early second round, give me Milroe all day long.
Who's the comp for Milroe? Is it Hurts?
Hurts, but faster.
Yeah.
Hurts, but maybe not quite as big. I can't remember what Hurts was coming out, but I mean, Hurts, but faster. That's the comp. And if you develop him, you give him patience and the right offense and things, I think he can get to be a special player. He's got Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels' ability as a runner. And again, the arm strength isn't a problem. Just got to harness it. He can make all the throws. He's just got to figure out how to use it properly. So Shedeur becomes the wild card there at 2 and 3. If he doesn't go 2 or 3, do the Raiders pick him up as the future beyond Geno Smith at 6? If that doesn't happen, how long does he wait before somebody maybe moves up? Got to get ahead of Pittsburgh, I would imagine. But 4 and 5, I think the Patriots are praying that he goes ahead of them. Because if he does, then that ensures that they get either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter or each, either of which I think they'd be thrilled about. And then the Jaguars are interesting because I think for so long here, everybody, myself included, has had Mason Graham from Michigan, the defensive lineman, pegged in there. And while it's a solid pick and it fills a big need, this is the most loaded interior defensive line class I've seen in a long, long time. And I think they could be really confident that they could get a very similar player at, in the 30s. I think they're picking 36, 37 in the second round. And so I think there's not a huge gap between Mason Graham and the guy they can probably get there. The guy that I think would be really fun in Jacksonville, I've had him there in my last 2 mocks, is Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. Because I think if you're Liam Cohen and you're like, man, we released Evan Ingram, we're going to have this opening in our offense now. What better way to help Trevor Lawrence out than to bring in a guy in Tyler Warren who's massive, athletic, physical. He can block in the run game. He can create so many matchup problems. I think that'd be a really, really fun pick for the Jags at 5 and be a really fun way to kind of turn the draft on its head early.
Or maybe Liam Cohen drafts Ashton Genty and has a Genty ETN type of Rashad White and Bucky Irvin backfield.
Hey, I tell you what, there's no running back on the Jaguars roster that should prevent them from taking Ashton Genty. I'll say that. Travis Etienne has been good, but banged up and fumbling. And Tank Bigsby has been really flashy at times, but really inconsistent. Again, one of the 3 truly elite players in this draft. If they took him at 5, wouldn't bat an eye whatsoever. He'd immediately be the best running back on that team.
ETN fumbles a lot. Luke Easterling does not. Athlon Sports at Luke Easterling. He's my brother's favorite mock drafter. He's his brother's favorite mock drafter. He's probably your brother's favorite mock drafter out there. Does a lot of great stuff. Luke, always a great time catching up with you, man. I know you're super busy. I appreciate it, buddy. Have a great weekend. Talk soon, buddy.
Hey, always a pleasure, Jay. Take care, my man.
You the man.